All right. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being part and parcel of today's program. Again, many thanks to Afrinic for giving me this opportunity to present. I'm glad to come after Yazid, who has touched a bit about country code top-level domains and from a DNSSEC perspective. And I've also seen contributions from Mark, who has also been one of the trainers that have contributed to development of the country code top-level domain ecosystem on the African continent. My name is Barak Otieno. I'm the General Manager, Africa Top-Level Domains Organization, which is the regional association for country code top-level domain registries in Africa. I was scanning through the room and I noted that there are a few names that I know. Quite a number are fairly new to me, and I think it would only be fair if I give a quick introduction of what Africa Top-Level Domains Organization does in the African region. Part of the reason why I'm making this presentation is also to rally the community to support the local country code top-level domain registries, which I believe, as we've discussed, are critical internet infrastructure within our respective communities. So Africa Top-Level Domains Organization is basically the home of Africa's national top-level domain registries. We act as a focal point for African top-level domain managers to discuss matters of policy that affect country code top-level domains globally, and then to present the group's position as one voice. So if we just go back to the history, basically of internet development in Africa, most of us are familiar with the role that the Internet Society and other players such as ICANN played. We know that the pioneer engineers in Africa were basically trained through the INET programs that were initiated by the Internet Society, an organization that was founded in 1992. In 1998, we had ICANN established, again, to manage global critical internet resources. Around 2000, of course, we had the Africa Network Operators Group in Africa that now started training engineers with a focus to developing the internet in Africa. And beyond that, the pioneer and founder, Professor Nick Quaino, and the many other pioneers also made sure that we had institutions on the African continent that facilitated growth of different aspects of the internet. So if my history is right, I think around 2000 or 2004, we had Afrinic being formed. Much later in 2006, 2008, we had Africa Top-Level Domains Organization being formed. Of course, Afrinic was looking at the numbering ecosystem, whereas Africa Top-Level Domains Organization was looking at the naming ecosystem on the African continent. At the start, Africa Top-Level Domains Organization was actually hosted by Afrinic and supported in its functions by Afrinic as well, until it got to a point where it was able to grow its own wings and got registration in Nairobi, Kenya, where it is hosted by one of the members, Kenya Network Information Center. So the slide that is before us on the screen basically presents the internet ecosystem and specifically our role as Africa Top-Level Domains Organization in the internet ecosystem. It's worth noting that Africa Top-Level Domains Organization started its activities actively in the year 2010, and therefore it has been about 10 years of active operation, addressing different aspects of country code top-level domains in Africa. But just to note and appreciate the fact that we operate in an ecosystem. We have counterparts such as the Latin America and the Caribbean Top-Level Domains Organization that covers Latin America and the Caribbean and has approximately 50 CCTLD members from the region. We have the Asia Pacific Top-Level Domains Organization that covers the Asia Pacific region and has approximately 55 CCTLDs covering the region. And we do have Africa Top-Level Domains Organization covering the African territory, and approximately another 55 country code top-level domains registries. Of course, we also extend our support to the islands that are surrounding, that are part and parcel of the African region. We also have the Council for European National Top-Level Domain Registries, or CENTER, which accounts for over 80% of global top-level domain registrations, and which has been in existence for the longest time, I think having been formed around 1998, just around the time the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers was created or formed. So we are the Association for the African Region, and we play a role in the internet ecosystem that I have deployed in the screen in the areas of policy development for country code top-level domain registries, also technical capacity development, and internet governance related issues on the African continent. It's worth noting that our journey has cannot be mentioned without mentioning the Internet Society, without mentioning Afrinic, without mentioning ICANN, which play different roles respectively on the African continent. And just to note that among our pioneer programs that we started for training or capacity building for country code top-level domain registries, we have a program called the Initial Registry Operators Course, the Advanced Registry Operators Course, and Secure Registry Operators Course, which were jointly developed with the support of ISOC and ICANN. And much more recently, we tried to infuse realities based on operations of the country code top-level domain registries by African CCTLDs into the training programs to make them more relevant or to make them more useful. Of course, we also do benchmark a lot with our counterparts, APTLD, LACTLD, and CENTER, which are the CCTLD regional organization. And we also actively participate in the ICANN ecosystem, specifically in the country code name supporting organization, where Africa contributes approximately 38 members. I think it is third in terms of the regional organization with the highest contributors in the country code name supporting organization within the ICANN ecosystem. And so ICANN is a critical partner in the activities that we are doing in the African region. Having said that, I also want to appreciate and acknowledge the role that has been played by local stakeholders and local internet organizations such as Afrinic, such as AFNOG, such as AfricaSat, whom we have memorandums of associations with in the work that Africa Top-Level Domains Organization does. We are all aware of the Africa Internet Summit, and each year, AFTLD has an opportunity either during the AFNOG sessions or the Afrinic sessions to conduct training to stakeholders who are interested in how country code top-level domain registries do operate. The objective of this presentation is just to remind us of how critical the country code top-level domain registries are, and to rally us as a community to support our individual country code top-level domains registries in the spirit of thinking locally and acting globally, because strong country code top-level domain registries basically mean that we have strong internet ecosystems locally. We have seen, for instance, when the continent was applying for the .Africa TLD, we got the support of the ZA Central Registry, which is part of the .ZA ecosystem, and that is how we were able to get .Africa and not only just apply and get it from ICANN, but also operate it. As you all know, ZA Central Registry remains the technical operator, or rather, of course, Registry Africa was created with the support of ZA Central Registry, and it remains the technical operator of .Africa. So what I'm trying to say is a strong strong country code top-level domain registries can really be a catalyst for internet development in our local ecosystems. Moving on, just to share a snapshot of country codes across the world, we can see that Africa has not been left behind. A lot of development has been taking place, even though we were among the last in terms of development. Just to note that from 2011 or 2010, there was a lot of focus in building technical capacity for country code top-level domain registries in Africa. At that time, over 50% of country code top-level domain registries in Africa were being managed outside the African continent. And so we embarked on a mission with the support of local and international stakeholders to make sure that we build technical capacity that would guarantee or ensure that the registries were managed from within the African continent. And as we speak, I'm proud to note that over 90% of country code top-level domain registries in Africa are now being managed in continent. And I believe that this has contributed a lot in one way or the other to growth of internet development in the African continent. Of course, compared to our counterparts in Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean and Asia Pacific, our CCTLDs may not be as strong financially or business-wise, but currently our focus is on the path of ensuring that our CCTLDs are strong. And I think initiatives such as the one that Yazid mentioned earlier will go a long way in ensuring that there is trust in our local country code top-level domain registries in Africa. One may ask, how do the CCTLDs probably differ from the GTLDs that we are all accustomed to? I believe a good number of citizens on the African continent are probably using .coms or other generic top-level domain registries that were pioneer compared to their country code top-level domain registries. And the excuse has always been country code top-level domain registries are not as stable and secure as their generic counterparts. But I'm glad that this narrative has changed, and I think it is incumbent on us who are on this call and the technical community to convince our local communities that country code top-level domain registries are beneficial and that they have value compared to the generic top-level domain registries that, of course, are under the ambit of ICANN. And worth noting is that when you buy a generic top-level domain registry, that is capital flight. The money goes out of your country, the money goes out of your continent. But when you buy a country code top-level domain registry, which is owned and mostly operated within your borders and by the local internet community, then the money stays local and it can be used for furtherance of the internet community within your respective country. And it is for this reason that I'm here to push the agenda or to push the narrative for country code top-level domain registries in Africa. I have mentioned that there are 54 plus country code top-level domain registries in Africa, the youngest being .ss for South Sudan. As AFTLD, now we have or rather for a while, we've a structure where we have 32 full members. And when I say full members, these are country code top-level domain registries that are contributing a membership fee to AFTLD and that are supporting the organization to grow. We are not where we would desire to be, similar to our counterparts in other regions, but also we have made a milestone in terms of movement. Of course, we face challenges in that most of our country code top-level domain registries are fairly small, and sometimes they struggle to meet various obligations, and they have to rely on other parties such as regulators, but I believe in this decade, we will move to a level where at least over 50% of our country code top-level domain registries are sustainable. They do elect a board of directors made of 7 members of the executive committee. And then, of course, I do manage the secretariat on behalf of the country code top-level domain registries in Africa. So one may ask, what do we do at AFTLD? other than capacity building and capacity development, and I have mentioned the registry operation curriculum or the registry operations program, we are currently working on a statistical platform. Of course, currently most members in the community are asking, how many domains do we have as a continent? And we've faced a challenge in that because of the small nature of most of our CCTLDs, initially people were fearful sharing information because it would be shameful, for lack of a better word. But again, I would like to note that this is not a problem of the country code top-level domain registries alone. It is a collective responsibility of we as Africans to make sure that our country code top-level domain registries are big. As we speak at the moment, probably there are registries like South Africa, which are at over 1 million names, but majority of the other registries are still within the 20,000 to 100,000 domain name range. And part of this, of course, is due to legacy issues on the African continent, such as the level of infrastructure development in our respective countries. But I think this can no longer be an excuse. It takes all of us to be able to make sure that our country code top-level domain registries grow. As we speak, as AFTLD, we promote the 3R model, or the registry, registrar, and registrant model, where the registry focuses on infrastructure management, both taking care of the zone files and affiliated infrastructure, taking care of the Anycast infrastructure, and then the registrars then focus on building the local market. So we have the African Registrar Association, which is still in its growth stages or infancy stages, and it is good if there is any registrar in the room to find out how they can be part and parcel of the African Registrar Association. And then, of course, we have the registrants who are internet users on the African continent. So it is us who are listening to this conversation who have the responsibility of convincing our kinsmen, especially from the African continent, that indeed our country code top-level domains registries are as valuable as the generic top-level domain registries. So towards this end, we've been doing a number of capacity development and capacity building initiatives, targeting either the registries themselves, which is the focus of AFTLD, the registrar community, growing and increasing the number of registrars, and also the registrant community through the partnerships that we have with the various organizations such as AFRINIC, AFNOG, and AFRALO, for lack of, just to mention but a few. Currently, we are focusing on the area of data collection and also demonstrating or rather showcasing the number of registration on the African continent. And just to note that there are many other initiatives that are taking place that are also aligned to this. ICANN has been conducting also a study to ascertain, it did one, I think, in 2015 or 2016, to ascertain the state of the domain name industry from a holistic perspective on the African continent. And equally, AFTLD has in one way or the other been part and parcel of this process, but is also currently running its own process with partners to also make sure that we do have our own observatory that will contribute towards ensuring that we have available statistics. So I invite you to visit stats.aftld.org. There's also protocol.onda, which is under development, to just see some of the work that is going on in the background. We are working together with AFRINIC to see if we can find an easy way of collecting these statistics real time from African CCTLDs, now that at least the challenge of ensuring that the CCTLDs are automated is behind us. But I think most importantly, we need to normalize this conversation of statistics or data in our communities. If we demand for this data in our communities, it means that our CCTLDs will build a culture of ensuring that statistics are available and they can be presented to the public. And I think it starts at local level before we move to continental level, because if we don't see the value within our respective countries, then it's a struggle getting this data. And this is the reason why I have actually made this presentation, and I hope that we can join hands in pushing for a culture that appreciates data in our local communities. I'll come back to these slides, which basically speaks to how AFTLD operates, but I just want to quickly look at statistics from a global level. Currently, of course, we have about approximately 360 million names across all country code or across all top-level domain registries globally. Of this, if you look at composition, we can see that .com accounts for the highest amount at 161 million names. But again, when we look at the top 10, you can see that country code top-level domain registries account for a decent number of entities or organizations. We have .cn for China at 20.6 million. We have .de for Germany at 17.3 million. We have .net, sorry, we have .uk at 11.1 million. We have .nl at 6.3 million. We have .ru at 5.7 million. We have .br at 5 million. So in total, out of the top 10, we have 6 country code top-level domain registries. And I think this speaks to the value of country code top-level domain registries within the internet value chain or within the internet ecosystem. But worth noting is that there is no entity from Africa that is featuring around the top 10, which should be an area of concern for us. Of course, we may have come in late in the internet conversation, but nothing stops us from ensuring that we are part and parcel of the top 10, especially when it comes to the global picture. We do have over 1 billion citizens on the African continent, and I believe the value of the internet is in the numbers. And I think this is the challenge that I really want to throw back to the community. If you look at some of the statistics we've collected on stats.aftld.org, which combines both countries that are giving out domain names for free and those that are providing them as a service, or you have to pay for them, you'll see that cumulatively we have approximately 10 million names across all CCTLDs on the African continent. We have not been able to get an authoritative figure in terms of when we combine both the GTLDs and the CCTLDs, but in any case, I believe it accounts for less than 1% of the global top-level domain count. And with that said, I think referring back to a study that was done by AFNIC, the French CCTLD, in 2018-2019, it showed that Africa had the fastest developing zone, but of course, COVID happened, and I think when COVID happened, most of our CCTLDs really stagnated, and TLDs really stagnated if you compare it to the growth that other regions such as Europe experience. And I think this can be attributed to awareness or digital literacy, where people were quickly able to appreciate the fact that if they were unable to go to the office, they could put their services or solutions online, and everybody could be able to access the same. So in a nutshell, that is basically my presentation. And I invite you to look at stats.aftld.org and prototype.onda.africa to see the initiatives that we are doing. But most importantly, we would like this conversation on data to be normalized within our respective countries so that data collections becomes easier. And with that, I would wish to bring the presentation to a stop. I hope I'm within time and welcome any questions that may come from the audience. Over to you, Magali.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baracotino. Thank you for sharing all this information. It was an insightful presentation, and thank you also for those words of encouragement to rally the members of a community. So now I will invite our members for their questions. So please don't hesitate. Type your question in the chat bar. Thank you. I would also like to remind you that this session is recorded and we are on live on YouTube. Thank you, Bryce Abba, for your question. So the question is, how is AFTLD assisting countries to take their CC back? Just a second, Mr. Barak, we will activate your mic. Just a second.
Thank you.
The mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Magali. And thank you, Brice and Musa, for the questions. I would say that the matter of allow me to maybe take 2 minutes to address the issue of how AFTLD is assisting African countries to take their country code back. So our most recent initiatives working with the ISOC Gambia in ensuring that .gm is managed from back in Gambia. And what we've been doing in collaboration with the other African CCTLDs, which contribute trainers for the Africa Top Level Domains Organization, such as .sn, .tz, to name a few, and organizations and institutions such as ICANN, we organize the registry operations courses at country level, first to create awareness. So when we come to country level, we invite, we make sure that whoever is organizing the meeting, because we don't organize the meetings as AFTLD, has to ensure that there's government representation in the room. There is the business community is represented, civil society is represented, academia is represented, and internet users are represented, so that we are not at a situation where any of the community members say that they have been left out. It is worth noting or reminding us that the process of ensuring that a country code top level domains organization is delegated involves government. A country code top level domain registry is a creation of a standard known as the ISO 3166 standard. ISO 3166 determines what a country is and what a territory is, and it is a process of the International Standards Organization, which is a UN body. The internet community comes in through ICANN or through public technical identifiers, PTI, in ensuring that whatever code has been agreed on by ISO is then created in the root zone and is accessible by the global internet community. So one, a critical player is government, because government is the custodian or is the one that is recognized through the ISO 3166 standard. And in most cases, government is their administrative contacts. We see this, most of the communications authorities on the African continent being the administrative contact. If we have a multi-stakeholder ecosystem, you will find that stakeholders will then agree on a suitable vehicle that will manage the technical aspects of the CCTLDs or the registry. And this is part and parcel of the programs or the training programs that we do in partnership with different stakeholders from the African continent, especially those that have not delegated their country code top-level domain registries, to make sure that the community first understand what it means, what a country code top-level domain registry is and what it is not, and the responsibilities that come with managing a country code top-level domain registries. It is worth noting that ICANN will not transfer or delegate a country code top-level domain registry when a community cannot demonstrate that it has the capacity and capability to manage the country code top-level domain registry. So it's not a question of feelings. It's a question of demonstrating competence that a country is able to manage the registry. So this is what we do. We do have an annual calendar that like now our calendar for next year will be out at the end of this month. And we normally invite countries that are willing, that may have challenges with country code top-level domain registries, to invite us to host the meeting. And then, of course, working together with other partners such as Afrinic, ICANN, ISOC, and our registrars, we come into the country and conduct the training that not only creates awareness, but also ensures that the country code top-level domain registry has been registered. As we speak, I'm glad to report that a number of country code top-level domain registries in Africa, such as .za, .ke, now are also able to host other registries within their jurisdiction. And they can also assist in ensuring that you build the necessary infrastructure in your country. And this is what we have been trying to promote, the spirit of Ubuntu. If you cannot do it, your neighbor across the border can be able to support you. And when we did training in Senegal, in the Gambia, we had the help from Senegal, which is just across the border, to make sure that they build an ecosystem that will guarantee the hosting of .gm locally. Of course, it is work in progress. On the second question that has been asked by Musa about the 10% of CCTLDs managed locally, this is a collective challenge. As we speak, there is an initiative to make sure that Guinea is managed locally. Of course, most of you know Randy Bush. He's shown keenness to transfer management of Guinea back home. And currently, there are efforts championed by .sn Senegal and .ci to build local capacity in Guinea so that they can be able to manage their CCTLDs locally. And we do hope that through the engagements that we are having with ISOC, with ICANN,